I'm ready. Yeah.
Mr. O'Leary?
Maria's all over.
Good morning. I would like to call this meeting to order, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Carrie Linklater. I'm your chairperson today. I'm joined on the panel to my immediate left, Mr. Jeff Peich, my far left, Mr. Doug Marks, and our city assessor is Mr. Rob Lucky. And our admin secretary is Fida Aziz. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. Statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record.
Would you like to sign? Please state your full name.
Robert Allen.
And you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, and the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You have to swear?
Sorry.
Please state your full name.
Ryan Oliveros.
And you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
And good morning, Mr. Oliveris and Mr. Lucky. So we'll just start at the top of the docket today, and we're going to first go to 555 Lanark Street. Whenever you're ready, Mr.
Thank
Lucky,
you.
start us off.
Excuse me, I got a bit of a cold here, but I'll push through. And the first is file number 19-3387, roll number 12071115100, 555 Lanark Street. We have a 1962 six-story, call it high-rise, originally built in 1962. This building has received some extensive renovations in several stages. So the effective age has been raised to 1987. My third page is a site plan, and I'll go a little bit longer in the first one just to set it up for the next four. So I've circled the first building, the high-rise that we're doing right now, and then as we go north towards Corden, there's 5 buildings is the next row, or then 5 buildings, then 5 buildings all the way to Corden. So the whole block is owned by, it's the same project, but it's divided into rows. So a lot of the renovations were done multi-buildings, so there'll be permits in some of the buildings that apply to other buildings, because they look at it as one, but it's four different roles. These other ones are all low-rise, this is the only high-rise. So the next page is a picture of the front. It's, as I said, 6 stories and kind of a curve. Then our actual page 3 is the workup, and this is the model. There's 15 one-bedrooms, 57 two-bedrooms. Our overall, it says average monthly rent per unit. That's not just the rent. That includes all income divided by the number of suites. So that would include laundry, parking, anything that's income. And on the return, the actual rent for the one-bedrooms is $11.44, and the two-bedrooms, which there's the majority of, is $14.05. So, like I said, on top of that would be laundry and parking. So our income number is should be right on. The model 2.4% vacancy and expenses, which are the expenses are almost right on the applicant's number. For this age of building, we use 5% capitalization rate, and I would ask that you maintain the assessment of $13,167,000. And I think that's all I have to I'm not sure if I put the rent roll in there. No, I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get mixed up what I have in mind and what I put as the brief. But anyway, that's about all there is. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, questions?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lucky, so the average monthly rent that you have applied to the subject property here, so those are those based on actuals, or is that model driven? Sorry.
I think it's modeled, but it looks like it would be fairly close to the reported rent.
But it includes ancillary income, so laundry and parking?
Right, any other kind of income.
All right. Have you reviewed the amount of discounts that the owners had to apply in order to achieve the income that they had for the past 3 years or so?
Well, discounts are applied in different ways. Sometimes we look at them, sometimes we don't. But typically, when a place has been extensively renovated, they might get a 3 months rent up front, that kind of thing. But then the rent catches up. If we look at the actual condition today.
Okay. For your expenses, for the applied expenses, those are also model driven as well?
Right.
Okay. Have you provided in your brief how you came about to the expense ratio at all?
No, that's just our model percent.
Okay. So I'm looking at page 4 of your brief right now, your rent comparables.
Right.
605 River and 595 River. Are those two properties, do they back onto the river? I think 595 does actually. Okay.
River Avenue runs into the river. One of them may have a partial river, I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you agree, though, that these suites that have a river view for your rent comps, 595 River, I'll speak to that more because I was able to look into that one yesterday. Would you say that the suites with a river view would drive up the average monthly rent for the property?
You could. You could.
Yes. Okay. 595 River, that's located in the Roslyn area, correct?
Correct.
Roslyn neighborhood? Okay. Would you say some purchasers would view that as a superior location?
I don't. My daughter lives there, and personally, I'm hoping she would move. It's quite dangerous. But this one is located, Corydon, right in River Heights. I'm impartial. I'm a River Heights person. I find it safer here. I could be wrong. I guess it's personal taste. Some people would like to live there. They could be closer to downtown. Some people would like to live in River Heights, have the Corydon. A lot of people like Corydon.
But it looks like these are all within your 4 rent comparables. They're all in different neighborhoods.
1099 Grant is parallel to Corydon. It's not that far different. Because of the extensive renovations of the subject, I'll be honest, it was hard to hit the subject's rent. It's high. So, I had to look. These are all in the same one of our general rental areas, and like I said, some people would, like 1099 Grant, would prefer to be across from Grant Park Shopping Center. Other people would prefer to be on Grant near Mona Lisa Restaurant. But I don't see a huge difference.
Okay. 595 Grant and 1099 Grant. So again, just to establish the average monthly rents, they are model driven as well.
I'm not sure. It could either be model or it could be actual.
Madam Chair, do I have to ask permission before I question the Mr. Lucky regarding 595 Grant and 1099 Grant? I am aware of the actual 2017 rents. May I question on that? I know that may be perceived as bringing in new evidence, but I don't want to do anything inappropriate.
No, sorry, you're talking about 595 River?
595 River and 1099 Grant.
Why don't you use that for your presentation?
Okay.
Okay.
It's not in my presentation, though.
You can
I'm just questioning.
You can talk about it in your presentation.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you. Okay, so now moving on to your cap rates here on page 5. Have you provided in your brief how you came about how you established the cap rates? Have you provided any income workups or anything?
I don't have any cap rate studies. This is our this shows some of the things we used. We used actual cap rates. We used model derived cap rates, and we looked at market information like Colliers, CBRE, Cushman Wakefield, Stevenson. Cushman Wakefield, no, sorry, not Stevenson, but So we looked at actual cap rates, we looked at the model, and we looked at market evidence. So from that, we derived cap rates for different categories of buildings. This one's at the top end of the range, and it is the top end of the range in terms of rental accommodation, so that seems normal.
Within those cap rate comparables that the model has taken into account, do you know if any of them included properties that were purchased with the intention to renovate?
Well, I can't speak for the three Colliers, BRE, and Cushman Wakefield, but we threw out a lot of properties where the cap rates were abnormal and possibly weren't bought for their income and expenses or for redevelopment. Some were renovated, some possibly could be renovated. It's been pointed out that some of our ones that we had presented in the past were renovated, but they had minor renovations. So I don't think our cap rates are skewed by properties to be renovated.
Would you be able to name any of the cap rate comparisons that were used?
I don't have any of the evidence here. No.
Right, so nothing really for us to refer to. No further questions.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Sinclair.
Mr. Marks?
Yes, as far as renovations were concerned on this property, when were they done?
I believe they were done in 2 stages, and that may become more clear as we go on to the next ones. But there was some major renovations done somewhere around 11, 12, and then some fairly recently around 17. And I think that's possibly why the actual income is lower than what the current rent would be based on the current condition after renovations. So the income's catching up to the renovations is what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way.
Okay, and as far as the renovations were concerned, were there building permits taken out for them?
There is some building permits which I've included. There was no major ones on this, but they were put on other properties and done over the whole 1, 2, 3, 4 rolls.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Beck?
Thank you for the photo. It always helps sort of provide a sense. Do you know how old the photo is?
It's Street View,
Okay.
depending when Google shot it, but I think this is somewhat
Somewhat
current.
Okay.
It looks nicer than it does in the picture.
Yeah.
I go by here all the time.
Great. And I'm wondering, do you know the total of those permits that were taken out on the?
I haven't totaled them, no.
Okay. Do you have them with you?
I have them in the next properties that we come to. Where the properties that they're registered to, I put them in those briefs, so we'll get to that.
I have another question.
Thank you. Did you inspect the property, Mr. Lucky?
I haven't, no.
Okay. Do you know the last time the property was inspected by the city?
It would be about 17, 18, somewhere around there.
Okay. Do you have any field notes on that?
No.
Okay. So no information at all about the inspection?
No.
On page 3 of your brief, that's all model driven.
looks that way, yes, I think so.
Okay. Did you prepare the brief?
I did.
Okay. So you said for the average monthly rent at $13.51, it included laundry and parking. Does it also include utilities?
Hmm. That includes heat, storage locker, and water. So it won't include electric. That would make sense because the expense ratio is fairly low.
Okay. And in regards to your 5% cap rate, you've provided us with page 5 of your brief, your cap rate studies. And that's it, page 5 for your cap rate?
Great.
Okay, so even though this is a 1962 actual build, it's like on your chart, it's very low, coming in between 4 and 7.3.
5% is our cap rate for anything newer than, like starting at 1975 and newer. So the, if it didn't receive all the renovations at 1962, the cap rate would be 5.3.
5.3?
5.3.
Okay, thank you. So is it, sorry, 5.3 is it 1974 to 19?
46.
Okay. And just in regards, page 4 of your brief, your rent comparables, you've got properties 1 and 2, one at 605 River and 595 River. You have an effective year built on those properties, but do you have an actual age of when they were built?
605 River, I believe that is the actual age. The 595 River would be somewhat comparable to the subject, built in the 60s, maybe. I don't know what year, but comparable in actual age for 595 River.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Oliveros, if you would like to give us your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Linklater. So I guess before I begin, I know the board has probably heard some of these arguments a few times regarding site-specific analysis and cap rate study. Would we like to hear that again today?
If you wish to touch on it briefly, I think, Mr. Marks, have you heard it?
Briefly, I have, yes.
Okay. Did you want to hear the full, or your,
Cole's Village version would be fine.
okay, thank you.
Sir?
The Coles Note version.
The Coles Note,
Yeah.
okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so the subject property 555 Lanark Street, roll number 12-0711115100. On page 1 of my brief, it's just a summary of my presentation today. We are asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $13,167,000 to $10,352,000. So going to page 2 of my brief, the subject property is located on 555 Lanark Street, 6 stories high. It's on the northwest corner of Lanark Street and John Brebeuf Place. The improvement was built in 1962 and is presently being used as a multiple family residential building. The subject property has 15 one-bedroom suites and 57 two-bedroom suites. That comes to a total of 72 suites. There's 79 outdoor parking stalls and 12 indoor parking stalls that are reported as being on the site. The property was renovated in 2010. The assessor has an effective age of 1987, which we do not dispute today. The site, almost a perfect square, but rectangular in shape. According to the city's assessment department records, we're sitting at approximately 2 acres and it's zoned residential multifamily. Page 3, I've provided a further map of, a map of the location of the subject property to hopefully give you an idea of some of the amenities surrounding it. Going to page 5, so our office, we value all apartments based on a site-specific analysis. So according to the Manitoba Municipal Board Order 95-149, it states that using a site-specific analysis based on actual income and actual expenses, that is the appropriate way to value apartments or any income-producing property. Page 6 of my brief, this is just a summary of the cap rate that I had used and the income approach, of course. So going to page 7 of my brief. Okay, so what we did here. So starting from line item number 1, of course, gives us the potential gross rents of the subject property, and we have applied the discounts to the subject. For the potential of market rent, we use the actual rents that were, the rents minus the discounts that the property recognized as of 2017. We have applied the assessment department's vacancy rate of 2.4%. We do include laundry and parking income as well to come to our effective gross income. For the expenses, you can see the rates that I have applied. Unless otherwise stated, we have used the actual 2017 expenses. So for example, for line item number 16, we used average 2015 to 2017. That brings us to total expenses of $480,034. And based on our cap rate study, which I'll take you through in just a few seconds here, we have applied a cap rate of 5.75%, and there's a summary table on page 6 for you to refer to. The appendix of my brief, that's for your perusal. Page 10 actually provides a few photos of some suites, of a suite of this in the subject property. And with that, I will quickly bring you through our cap rate study. So, our cap rates on page 1, we separate them by age category. Page 3, we've provided a summary of our cap rate comparables. The cap rates are calculated by stabilizing the actual income and expenses for each property on a site-specific basis. On page 4, we have provided a table showing the cap rates from the market reports generated by Colliers and CBRE. We do note that the Colliers cap rates, they do include closing costs, which is why we have added a premium of 0.1%. I also note that the cap rates indicated by Colliers, they have increased by 0.25% because mortgage rates have increased by 0.6%, and investors, because of that, are wanting a higher return on their investment. This is further supported by the Bank of Canada's overnight interest rate, which has increased approximately 0.75 basis points between April 1st of 2016 and April 1st of 2018. On pages 6 to 14, we have provided the workups of each cap rate comparison that we have used for you to refer to also. So we have here for you a very detailed report regarding, or of how we came about our cap rates today. The repair and maintenance study that you would have been provided in your packages today. I'll just touch briefly on that as well. These are just to show, these just further support our opinion that we should be valuing apartments, any income apartments on a site-specific basis. So with that, I asked the board to consider our evidence, and we would request that the value be reduced for the subject property. That the 2020 assessed value be reduced from $13,167,000 to $10,352,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lucky, questions?
Well, your cap rate study, that we went through, I'm looking at page 6, 210 St. Mary's. So, on page 6, 210 St. Mary's, your repair and maintenance you used to stabilize, which I believe is line 27. To get to 36,852, which is $332 a unit, how did you stabilize this?
So we would have taken the information that we have here, and we took the average of 2015 to 2016 for that.
So in 2016, the actual repair and maintenance is, for 11 suites, is $959 or $87 a unit? Does that seem a little low to you, or?
That does seem low. They could have been having less repairs done during that year.
Okay. So then, under the pro forma column, which is when the agent was selling this building and trying to paint a positive picture, he used 8,800, which is still $114 a unit. How come you didn't use that?
We would expect that some properties would have high years. For any property, we would expect there to be some high years with repairs and maintenance. We would expect there to be some low years of repairs and maintenance. So that's why we usually always take the average. We will stabilize based off of the information that we see. I don't think it would be, in my opinion, it wouldn't work to always take the high year, because we want to see how the property would typically perform in an ideal year for the expenses.
So you included the 6,300, you included the 900, and you threw up the 8,800 to get an average repair and maintenance of $332 per unit. And 8,800 is actually $800 a unit. But,
Yeah, that's what we did there, so.
Okay. So when you use low repair and maintenance for your cap rate sales, how does that affect your cap rate?
It would bump up, it would increase the cap rate.
Right. So if you stabilize these the same as you did the subject, and I think it was $1,300, how would what kind of cap rate would you get, for example, for your cap rate comparables?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Well, usually I put in a sheet that shows the repair and maintenance for the cap rate sales and the repair and maintenance used. And for this one, you use $1,314 per unit repair and maintenance for 555 Lanark, which is a renovated building. And this building, you're using, but you're only taking two of the numbers, and one's $87 and one's, whatever it is, $500 or $600 to arrive at 332. And I guess what I'm asking, are you comparing apples and oranges when you're using this high cap rate from the low repair and maintenance and applying the cap rate to this building that's been fully renovated and you're using repair and maintenance way higher?
Well, that's what, for the subject property, that's what, that's the repairs and maintenance that they have been establishing. I mean, these are just to give us sort of a range, give us an idea of how the cap rates, or what the cap rates, and then we're trying to estimate what the cap rates were for the reference period. So, and I mean, this here we can see that they have lower rents, and that transpires onto lower repair and maintenance. So we feel that this makes sense, and the cap rate evidence does support our cap rates and the repair and maintenance study further.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Yes, on your income and expense history, that was all done with actuals?
The income and expense history, that was all done with actuals. That is correct.
Okay, and now.
And if there were any capital expenditures, I would have tried to stabilize for that. I don't think, for this one, I didn't see any capital expenditures. There might have been some high years, but, there might have been some high expenses for certain expenses, but I felt the average brought us to how the property would typically perform.
And building permits? Was there any taken out on this property?
Building permits, yes, there was. I do have it in my records here. I did submit it into evidence, but.
If you're gonna talk about it, then we'll submit it, okay?
Okay.
So, proceed.
Yeah. I haven't submitted any building permits in my evidence today, so.
No further questions?
Mr. Page?
Just to follow on, question that was just asked. You indicated in your presentation the necessity of using actuals. You then indicated in your presentation that the vacancy rate applied here, number 5, is the city's vacancy rate.
Yes.
The question's just been asked if these are all actuals. I just want to be clear, in terms of the vacancy rate, what is the vacancy rate of this property?
Vacancy rate, 2015, it was 2.4%, 2016 is 1.4%, and 2017, it was 0.8%. So, 2015 to 2017, this is just to show you the history of the vacancy rates.
Yes.
And then the 2.4%, we felt that that was appropriate. Of course, with any property, you're gonna have some high years, high vacancy rates some years, low vacancy rates on other years. So we felt that the 2.4% was fair.
To me, it looks like the 2.4% is the highest vacancy rate of all the periods. So that is not a stabilized vacancy rate?
That is not a stabilized vacancy rate.
And it is not the actual vacancy rate.
It is not the actual vacancy rate, no.
Just wanted to make that point, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to also follow on the income statement, discounts. Could you please characterize what those discounts are?
So discounts, they could be a free month's rent, depending on the deal they worked out with the tenants. The reason why we apply those discounts is because we see it as the discounts work with the vacancy rates and vice versa. So because typically what property managers would like is to, of course, have low vacancy or no vacancy at all.
Right.
So they offer those discounts in order to get their vacancy rates, down. If they weren't offering those discounts, I would expect the vacancy rates to be higher, which is why we applied that. But 2.4%, it still seems fair in my opinion. Of course, 2015 already shows it, you're gonna have some high years and some low years when it comes to your vacancy.
Okay. And so the subject stabilized line, what discount has been used there? Has there been a discount used?
Right, so the discount we used here was, it was 2017.
It was a 2017 discount used?
Is the 2017 potential gross rents and the 2017 discounts that were used. So
Okay.
you'll see here the subject stabilized column
Yes.
and the 2017 column match up.
Okay. And just a curiosity, it was suggested that it was water and heat that's being paid for. I note line 23 on the expenses, very minor item, but seem to be other utilities?
Sorry.
Are those utilities common element utilities, line 23? It says utilities number 20, 21, 22.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering why that, and it's an insignificant number on your income statement, but I'm wondering why that would be characterized separately in the standard income and expense history.
Right. So the subtotal of the utilities.
That's the sub? Okay,
Yeah,
I
so that's-
apologize, I didn't see that it was a subtotal.
Yeah, that's okay. And we
Yeah.
don't double count that. So in the calculation
All right.
here, we don't double count, like we wouldn't add up every line here, I believe. Sorry, line 23 is not included in the total expenses.
I didn't see that was a
Yeah.
subtotal, and I thought there was a potential for a double count on it, so
Okay.
thank you for that. And I am a bit stuck on the repair and maintenance as well, along the assessor's line of questioning. Again, this is a stabilized repair and maintenance. How do we know sort of an annual repair and maintenance versus, which might otherwise be something amortized over a 15 or 20-year period? I don't see anything here which might consider a major cost of renovation.
Okay, so for the repairs and maintenance, we've taken the average 2013 to 2017
Okay.
to see how it typically performed. On pages, we provided the income statements for all the years that we have stated. So can't go through every line.
No.
Wouldn't be able to go through every line item.
What page
but
are you on? I'm sorry.
Page 16, I am on right now, so I'm just looking at 2013.
Okay.
So if there were any extraordinary expenses, we do not include those because, of course, they would be capital expenditures.
Okay.
Sorry, what page were you?
He said page 16.
Page 16.
So I'm sorry, what line on page 16? What is it?
Oh, I just wanted to give you a general page number here to sort of review the expenses, because you were asking if there was any extraordinary expenses
Right.
or anything like that.
So these are the sort of typically what is found in the repair and maintenance line there.
Exactly, yes. So we would split it up because they put all their expenses together, unfortunately.
Yes, okay.
But we separate them according to
Okay.
how we like to view the
Right.
expenses.
You did acknowledge that there were permits. I asked the assessor the value of those permits. He was not clear on what the values were. I'm trying to understand what major renovations, upgrades have been done. We're at an effective year of 1987. Do you have a list of the work or any major permits taken out? Trying to understand the value that's been added to this property.
I just have the
If-
list of the permits here,
Okay.
so that would need to be reviewed.
Is it in our package? I didn't see it.
No.
It is not in our package, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you'd like to give it to the secretary.
Yes, for sure.
I'd like to give it to evidence.
So 2009 is what we'd be looking at for the major interior and exterior alterations.
Sorry, 2009?
2009.
So I'm not seeing the value. I see the number description,
Yeah, so I just have the description.
issue date, but I can't determine the value from this. Is that right?
That would be correct.
I don't know if you want to see. Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveros, did you inspect this property?
I did not.
Okay, did anybody from your firm inspect this property?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, page 10 of your brief, you show a picture of a suite? Do you know
Yes.
when that was taken?
I do not know, but in some of the descriptions, in the description here, under the red line under the major column, it does say it was a renovated suite. So we're looking at it in its present physical condition. I did pull these photos on January 9th of this year. So these are the photos as of that date.
Okay. So there were two renovations to this property in 2020 and 2017, correct?
Renovated in 2020 and 2017.
Right.
Sorry, do you mind if I do that as well? I only brought the one
Sorry, I
copy
just-
with me today. Because I believe all the major renovations were done in, it was in my brief here. All the major renovations were done in 2010. The rest of these renovations here, these would only refer to, these look like maintenance to me. So these are,
Okay, so do you know the cost of the renovation in 2010? Or do you know what was exactly done?
just what it says here, so the interior alterations to the building, including the installments of windows, kitchen renovations, plumbing fixtures, flooring, and paint. Our records didn't go that far back into 2009. We only have histories up to 2012 for the amount of renovations that were done. The other properties you'll see later on how much was spent on renovations for those.
Okay. So there were further renovations done in 2017? Some upgrades? So,
I would say it was just maintenance and installing new boilers. Nothing major though.
okay,
Mhm.
so there would have been no vacancy as what's in your line 4? You're
Yes.
agreeing with the city's vacancy, so it was just done as the apartments went dark, okay,
Yes.
individually, okay, thank you, that's all my questions. And Mr. Lucky, I believe you said you were gonna provide information on the renovations in the next few properties?
Yeah, I was just, there was some redirect that came up here too.
Did you wanna ask
If
another
you're
question?
finished your question.
Yes, I am. Yes, go
Um,
ahead.
Okay, this, page 10, you have a feature sheet for the subject?
Page 10, I have a, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, the permitted work, as we've both stated, was back in, was it 10 or 11, somewhere around there?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. So if a place is renovated, it doesn't require a permit, does it?
It does not, no.
Okay, so this feature sheet, at the bottom, the date says 1/1. Where's this feature sheet from?
This is, so January 9th, 2020, that's just the date that I had printed out this copy from
So
Towers'
It's a current,
website.
it's a current website.
It's a current website.
Yeah, and, excuse me, I can't read this print here, but it says renovated suites, park-like setting. Didn't that tell me, like, if it was renovated back in 2010, that's 10 years ago, it wouldn't still be saying it's renovated, would it?
I'm not familiar with their marketing policies. I was just hoping to provide some photos of the subject property.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next property then, 525 Lanark. And Mr. Lucky, if you'd like to take us through your brief.
Thank you. .525 Lanark is file number 19-3386, roll number 12071115500. We have two-story, I call them walk-up apartments, originally built in 1956 with an effective age of 1985. Again, renovations, which I guess we haven't really been all to pinpoint, but anyway, I would take you to, well, the second page shows all the returns are in and no sales of record. Page 3 shows the site plan, and there's a little dot on the next one, but it's actually the circled 5 buildings. They're located again on Lanark. This is Corden and Mona Lisa, and then next is the Corden Village Shopping Center with Royal Bank and a bunch of shops there. Page 4 shows a typical street view. This is somewhat current. I know that quite recently all the envelopes were done on these buildings. Like I said before, it's ongoing renovations, major renovations. Envelopes pretty major. So it's sort of a double feature. You can get higher rents if you do the work, and you have efficiencies of heating when you put in new envelopes. There's typically they put styrofoam and then cover it with a type of stucco, I forget what it's called. But, so your heating bills go down and your rent goes up. And then here's, again, the current, on page 5, a current picture showing now leasing, completely renovated, open concept suites. So the structural work would have been done in the past requiring permits. Things like envelopes and decorating don't require permits. And it's hard for us to, well, it's impossible for us to keep track of this type of thing. So we've used our model. Rents are a little lower in this one than the high-rise. There's 21 bedrooms and 34 two-bedrooms, which is a slightly lower suite mix, more 2% than the previous one. Being that the effective ages are similar, we're looking at a similar expense ratio, and again, as a whole, this block of multifamily housing would represent a good pension fund quality investment, like the rates that we're seeing in at the top end of the market information cap rate. So our cap rate of 5% here. So it goes through, I've numbered the pages here, and 10 is again the renovation. 11 is $1.2 million. And this is what I was saying, this is back in 11. To do the opening up of the suites, meaning the kitchen overlooking the dining and living, that requires permits because you're knocking out walls. And at that time, that permit was $1.2 million. Upgrading the kitchens, that type of thing. And I believe on this one I included the rent roll, and if you look down the rent roll, would support their market rent, our market rent. I think we're in line. And that's about it.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Rivera?
So looking on page 6 of your brief, everything here, it's all model driven, is that correct? So the rents, the expenses, vacancy rates?
It's hard to say, like, because we review them. So it looks like it's market driven, but we also review before these go out for the reassessment. So it could be both. It could be a reviewed model income expense.
So what's,
But they're model numbers. You're right there.
so what's what is typically reviewed once the model generates once the model generates its own number and then your review process, what's considered in that?
Well, I can't get too specific on what we do, but before the assessment notices go out, we review the actual income and expense statements for as many properties as we can. And these properties would most likely fall under the category of the buildings we would review. So there is a good chance that somebody would have looked at the actuals and compared them to the model. And as I said, the rents are high here, and I feel that our model is pretty good.
All right, so going to page 7 of your brief. Were these all renovated properties for the rent comparables?
Well, for sure, 2 and 3 are. 1 and 4, there's been no change to the effective age. So I can't say for sure if they've been renovated, but, and the addresses all start looking the same. So if the apartment name was on here, I could probably have a better idea, but there's a lot of apartments on Grant. At least 2 of them have been renovated, probably consistently to the subject.
So the comps, the rent comparables, they're all within different neighborhoods. They're all high rises. I mean, comparable 4 it looks like it's partial low rise, partial high rise. The construction class, objectively, masonry bearing would be seen as better quality type of construction material. Then number of suites, we have some, in particular 2 and 4, 3 bedrooms that would the rent. So would you say that these properties would be considered superior to the subject?
Well, the subject has a higher suite mix of 2 bedrooms compared to 1 bedrooms than all the comparables. So the 2 3-bedrooms in 2 and the 5 3-bedrooms in 4 would be more than offset. If you look at the subject, there's 21 bedrooms and 34 2-bedrooms. That's, if you did a room count, I think the subject would be higher than all 4 comparables.
So to come at the model-driven, to come at the model rent, would you happen to know how many adjustments had to be made to come to that conclusion for the subject property?
Well, this is a little misleading. Like, basically, when I do this rent comparables, I do the whole area, which includes River Heights, Crescentwood, a portion of Fort Rouge, and there's probably 40 comparable buildings. So you go along this chart and you try and pick the ones that are the most comparable. In my mind, Grant and Corden are pretty comparable. I didn't include anything, say on Wellington Crescent, that type of thing. And they're all somewhat similar vintage of buildings. 1960s. Some have been given newer effective ages, some haven't yet. And so, and like I said, the bedroom count is superior in the subject to all these. Some people would prefer living in a two-story building. Some people would prefer a high-rise. I don't know how you would adjust for that, but the model takes in the whole, all the buildings and arrives at a rental value, and we taper that with the qualities. So there's excellent, above average, average, below average. This one would be at the above average to excellent for a 1960s building that's been renovated. So, I don't know if that answers your question. Lost track.
But we're still looking at high rises here, I guess with the exception of 4 that's got 2 buildings there and 1 to 8 stories. Would you say that we're comparing apples to apples in this case?
I think for rental accommodation, we're comparing apples and apples.
All right, and on page 8, just looking at your cap rates, so just to ask the question again, you haven't included the income workups, income workups, the expense stabilizations. You haven't included that in your brief today. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
My question's been answered, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Page?
You mentioned there are new envelopes on
Right.
this, and that work has been completed.
Very recently, in the last couple of years, that's why I said I only know that from, like, my bank is right there, and we go there, there's a restaurant near, not the fancy one, we go to the cheap one, on a regular basis. So I'm always looking at these buildings, and yeah, for sure they did the envelope. I mean, I haven't been in these buildings, but the feature sheets say that they're renovated, and
So you indicated that with that nature of renovation, the rents typically go up, expenses go down, or at least the heating expense would go down.
well, once the buildings hit a certain amount, they're not bound by rent control. And these rents would be over that amount. And they would have achieved that with the early major renovations to put them over the top. They could literally charge what they want. I mean, they can't, because they're showing that they're given 3 months rent and that type of thing.
Right.
But typically, when you move in and you get a 3 months rent, you don't get a free month every year.
Right.
So you get it the first year to move in, and then if you keep paying your rent, you'll sign a new lease, and you won't get the free month.
Right. And you know, the reason I'm asking these questions, I'm just trying to establish that the comparables, the rent comparables here are reasonable and competitive. And you've stated that you believe they are, particularly
I
what
think
you
they're
offered on rent.
similar in vintage. Like, I didn't take any of the newer buildings, like around Tuxedo, whatever that's called, the Kia. You know, there's some, I could have went in there and got some 2016 buildings. I didn't. That's in the same area as this.
And just to be clear, on the capitalization rates table, we're dealing with a low-rise here. This is a 2-story.
Right. It would be a low-rise. I
And
don't know if there's a difference between A and B.
Well, not really. It's, it depends, you know, who we're looking at, whether it's a Colliers or CBRE, et cetera.
Right.
but you characterize this as for the vintage above average to excellent.
For sure.
I have no other questions.
Thank you. My questions have been asked and answered. Mr. Oliveris, if you'd like to give us your presentation.
Thank you. So the subject property, at 525 Lanark Street, roll number 12-07, 1115500. Page 1 of my brief, it's just a summary of my presentation today. We ask that this board reduce the 2020 assessment from $9,012,000 to $7,089,000. Page 2 of my brief is just a property description and maps as well on pages 2 and 3 for you to refer to. Mr. Lucky has given quite an extensive property description already, so I won't go through that. Pages 4 to 6, similar to my previous presentation. We're valuing all apartments on a site-specific basis. So the same concept applies here for 525 Lanark. So going on to page 7 of my brief. We applied the same concept here to come to our 2020 value. So similar to 555 Lanark, we have used the 2017 rents discounted to bring us to the potential gross market rents. Now for 525 Lanark, the vacancy rates for this property in particular appeared to me that they were rising. So I have taken the stabilized vacancy rate average of 2015 to 2017. That brings us up to 3.3% for the vacancy. We do include the laundry and parking, and the expenses, again, similar to 555 Lanark. Unless otherwise stated, we have used the actual 2017 expenses, and that brings us to a value of $7,088,000 or $7,089,000, applying a 5.75% cap rate based on our cap rate study today. And the appendix follows the same logic. Page 10, I've provided photos of typical units of 525 Lanark, printed on the same day, January 9th of 2020, and the remaining pages are details, so rent rolls, income statements, and assessment records as well. And again, we asked this board to consider our evidence to reduce the assessed value for 2020 for the subject property from $9,012,000 to $7,089,000. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lucky, questions?
Oh, excuse me. I guess you touched on it. This is, on this one where your vacancy is higher than the model, you chose to use that.
I did, yes.
And can you explain why the vacancy is higher in 16 and 17? Or do you know why? Explain.
I do not know why, but that's the vacancy that's the vacancy as of those dates.
Could it be for renovations?
I would agree with that, yes.
So at the bottom here, you talked about it says Reno 2017, 32,694. What's that?
Those appear to be interior renovations, so that would explain our vacancy rate.
Okay, and then, I guess we've talked about the next part is the 11 and 12. You have renovation cost of $1.2 million, and then rehab of $2 million, almost 2. So that sort of talks about the double phase renovations.
Yes.
Okay. And then on page 10, the feature sheet, you blanked out the rent?
That is post-reference information, which is
Oh.
why I blinked that out, yeah.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Rich? You didn't have a chance to inspect the property?
I did not.
Anybody in your firm?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. You wrote the brief,
I
Mr.
did.
Rivers? I have no further questions, thank you. We're going to take a break.
You're here.
Yeah. And I'm going to call this hearing back to order, and we are going to hear 495 Lanark Street, and Mr. Lucky, whenever you are ready.
I think we can blow through this one. 495 Lanark Street is file number 19-3385, roll number 12071116000. Actual age 55, effective is 1985, and on page 3 is circled as being the second cluster south of Gordon. And page 4, just a sec. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm not sure if that's the street view. The envelopes were done in stages. This looks like it was done to when the street view was renovated for lease sign in front on page 5. Page 6 is another permit. This is an older one from 13, and it talks about the alterations. So same thing, they were done in stages, and it started from the south and worked north. There's no permit value there, but anyway, our NOIs are almost exactly the same here. We've got 384,212 as compared to the Altus being higher at 388. The difference is cap rate, and again, this is a highly renovated, desirable, high rent property, and 5% I would suggest would be applicable cap rate. And I don't believe anything else we need to go through here. So I would ask that you maintain the assessment, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Oliveris?
Yes, so on page 8 of your brief, do you know the vacancy rates of any of your comparables?
Well, no, I don't. I know that my son lived in one of these on Grant, I can't remember which one. And by 17 he had moved out, but before that there was a waiting list to get in, but I can't remember which one.
And the model here, it's essentially comparing higher rises to the subject building, which is a low rise. Is that correct?
Again, yes, I think these offer similar amenity. If they're renovated, I don't think that the owner or the prospective tenant would ask the age of the building. They're looking at current conditions.
Page 9, your cap rates. You haven't provided, or have you provided any supporting documents? No.
Well, this is our supporting documents. There's
Sorry, supporting documents for the cap rates. How you came about that?
well, I said we used actual, we used model, and we looked at the 3 market cap rates from commercial companies.
No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Have that.
Just for the record, page 8 of your brief. Mr. Lucky, I'm going to say your comparables 1 and 4. You're unaware if there's been a renovation. They're years 1964 and 67 respectively. The subject has an effective of 85. So would you not say, and they're both high rises? So would you say those are perhaps not your best comparables? That your weight would be on 2 and 3?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Would you also agree that comparables 2 and 3 are 5 and 7 stories? So in terms of maintenance, it's going to have a lower maintenance in regards to roofing, outside maintenance, etc., rather than a 2-story? And the subject property is spread out with 56,000 square feet, as opposed to certainly number 2 that has 64,000 square feet and it's a 5-story, low-rise, high-rise actually. I think it becomes high-rise at 5.
Right. 6 would be the yeah. Maintenance, high-rises have different maintenance issues. You know, they have underground parkades, which are very expensive to.
And does this one have an underground parking?
No, it has surface parking, which is more snow removal, but very, very cheap to maintain. They have different maintenance issues, but there's a lot of grass to cut for the subject.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to give us your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the subject property, 495 Lanark Street, roll number 12-07-111-600. Page 1, again, is just a summary of my presentation today. We're asking the Board of Revision to reduce the 2020 assessed value from $7,684,000 to $6,754,000. The assessor has already gone through a description of the property. I'll skip through that. Pages 2 and 3, you'll see maps of the subject, of the location of the subject property as well. Applying the same logic. Page 5, we're going on a site-specific basis. So we've applied also a 5.75% cap rate for the subject property that's shown on page 6. And our income workup follows the same logic as the previous properties on Lanark that we have spoken about today. And for this one, we applied the 2.4% vacancy rate, and it all follows the same logic for this income workup today. So again, we're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $7,684,000 to $6,754,000. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
Sorry, again, the average vacancy is 0.9, and you're using the model of 2.4?
We're using the model of 2.4, correct?
Your highest cap rate, or your highest vacancy is 1.2?
Highest vacancy is 1.2. That is because they did offer the tenants a discount, so that would be then reflected in their vacancy rate. When you offer discounts, you would reasonably expect the vacancy rates to go lower. Of course, how long that would be sustained, that's all speculative. So that is why we have applied the 2.4 vacancy rate, which we feel is fair.
But you've taken the discount off the income.
Yes. Yes, I mean, so again, speculation here. 2015 to 2017, we do see the vacancy rate sort of trickling up, so you would expect there to be higher vacancy rates at some points and lower, higher vacancy rates at one point in time versus lower vacancies at another point in time.
I guess the only other question would be, how come 15 discounts are 7,700, 16 they're 7,700, 16 they're 14,000, and then how come in 17 they're 66,000? And I guess that's the number you used.
Yeah, so those were actuals. It would be speculation, but maybe they were having higher turnover rates, which might have brought some uncomfort to the building owners, so they had offered higher rental discounts in 2017 to try to sustain a higher occupancy rate. That's speculation.
So you
That's what
wouldn't-
I would expect.
You wouldn't consider using the average discounts?
Maybe a consideration, but again, you may very well have some high years and some lower years. So that's why we applied the model vacancy rate today.
Okay, no further question.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Pike?
And I do find it a bit peculiar when there's a vacancy rate of less than 1%, and in the following period, the number of discounts triples or more. Do we know anything about the turnover rates or anything else going on with this building?
Just looking at the summary of my income workup here, it looks like, it appears that they had some tenants moving out with the vacancy rates increasing. So I would expect that there may have been some turnover, there may be some turnover issues. But I can't speak, I wouldn't be able to speak to it directly. That's just based off of what I'm seeing on my income workup.
Just to be clear, what was being seen is an increase in the turnover rate, but not an increase in the vacancy rate.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I see them kind of working as one in, kind of working one in the same, so higher turnover, maybe higher vacancy would follow. Correlation doesn't imply causation though.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, did you have a chance to inspect this property?
I did not, no.
Okay. And just for expediency, did you inspect any of the properties on the docket today?
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you. And would you say that this is 495 Lanark is a sister property to 525, and also the next property we're hearing at 465 Lanark?
Yes,
They're
I
all
would say
sister
that they're
properties?
sister properties.
Okay. So I'm just wondering then why you were asking 400,000 less on 495 as opposed to 525?
400, okay, so 525. So, I've learned through experience, through board decisions, that we should be treating each parcel as if they were to sell on their own, as if they were to sell as an individual parcel. I've seen that on multiple board decisions. So I treat them, when I value these properties, I treat them as separate income-producing assets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'll just rephrase my question. there is nothing outwardly apparent on this property that would give it 400,000 less.
Other than what they're achieving in income, no.
Okay, thank you. And I think Mr. Peitsch had brought up the discounts and the vacancy in 2017. Would that be to do with the enveloping of the building?
I would expect so. Maybe they want to recoup their costs, so to get more tenants in to try to recoup the envelope work. I hope that answers that question.
Mr. Lucky, I'm just going to redirect to you, and you had given us starting to lose my train of thought after weeks of sorry, you had given us from the renovations of 2.1 million, but it's not included in this, so is that for all three properties?
So far,
Is that-
and, we'll look at another one in the next one, but so far,
So, sorry, is that the total for all three properties, these sister properties?
I
The
don't know,
2.1?
but some of the permits do include other buildings, I can't tell. Like,
Does this include our first property we heard?
so for,
555 Lanark?
well, this permit on, is it page 6, of 495, is that the one we're looking at? Or?
But there's no declared value
No,
construction. And so that's why I was asking, because on your previous one, it had the 2.525, it had the 2.1 million.
Well, there was some notes on one of them. The
1.2.
On the Altus spreadsheet. I'm losing track
Sorry,
as
because it,
well. So page 7 of 525, the Altus report, it talks about 1,000,002 and then 2,000,002.
Mhm.
I don't know what buildings that's for.
Okay.
On this permit
It just-
detail, if I can interrupt for just a
Yeah, it
second.
says 54.
So at 495 Lanark, it includes apartment buildings F, G, H, J, and K.
Right, which probably is this 5, that they're in clusters of 5.
And that's under the 495.
Yeah, there's just no,
So, yeah, the previous cluster would
There's no
be A, B,
value.
C, D, E. And then this is F, G, H, and K.
right.
And then
Because
the
they're,
next.
they're
next-
5, 5,
That's
and
right,
5
yeah.
down Lanark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know
Just
how
drove down there
these
yesterday.
permits line up with the work. It says that, it says these ones here, but there's no amount. The ones,
Sorry, and we have no,
65. So they start at Corridon as being A, B, C, D, E.
right. And, sorry, and we have no permits on the cost of the enveloping of the buildings, correct? No, we don't.
That's part of the problem. Often the permits don't have any value. There's just a permit.
Okay,
Madam
thank you.
Chair. Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. It's not included in my evidence, but I do have the value here. Realize that we need some assistance in that, but I don't want to submit anything into evidence that I haven't submitted, but just to bring that up, I don't know if that would help.
Yes, you can submit it into evidence.
I can?
Yes.
All right. My records, they only went back till 2012, so I don't have anything before that, which is why I wasn't able to provide it for the previous properties. So.
We're gonna move on to the next property, 465 Lanark. Mr. Lucky, whenever you are ready.
465?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have file number 19-3383, roll number 12071116500. And this is the final cluster. 1954, effective age 1985. And then we have on page 3 the 5 buildings right on Corden. The street view, that's with the new envelope. Page 5 shows renovated. Page 6, it talks about the first permit is interior and exterior alterations, and this is, the permit was taken out in the end of 13, so the work would be after that. And 2.4 million. Work include underpinning, new beams, that kind of thing requires permits. Upgrading to the makeup of air, so HVAC, cosmetic work, exterior work to include adding rigid insulation. I think that is the type of stucco, EIFS. That has a value of 2.4. And then there was another permit in August of 14. There's no value on this one. Underpinning, makeup, similar kind of things that it addresses. Anyway, on page 8, we similar sweet mix, 24 and 30. Rent is 11.25. Excuse me. We're close on income and we differ on expenses slightly, but our model evidence is a value of $7,684,000, which is $142,000 approximately per unit, which is reasonable, and I would ask that you maintain the assessment. I don't have any more to present, anything more to present. If you have any questions, be happy to try and answer.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, questions?
My questions have been answered in the previous subject property, so no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Nothing for me this time, thank you.
Nothing for me, thanks.
And I have nothing. Thank you. Would you like to give us your presentation?
Thank you. Okay, so the subject property, 465 Lanark Street, roll number 12-07-111-6500. Follows the same logic as my previous briefs. We're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $7,684,000 to $6,256,000. Pages 2 and 3, I provided maps with a property description on page 2. The assessor has already gone through the property description, so I'll leave this to you. I'll leave my property description for your perusal. Again, we're going site specific. Page 7 is my income workup. I've applied the same logic for this property as the previous one, as previous. We have applied a 5.75% cap rate to the stabilized net operating income of $359,726, and that brings us to our value of $6,256,000 rounded. And that is what I ask this board to consider, to reduce the assessed value from $7,684,000 to $6,256,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
So again, on page 7, your workup, you've used higher than average line 2 discounts, and then line 5 higher than average vacancy.
That's correct.
Okay. And line 22, repair and maintenance, you're using,
Sorry, line 27.
oh, sorry, yeah, line 27. Your repair and maintenance is $1,045 per unit, while your comparable cap rate sales is about $600, just over $600 per unit.
We're going site specific, so I feel that value would be considered fair.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
My question's been answered, thank you.
Questions?
Did you have a permit on this? Or was that, that was the ABC?
That was 495 Lanark.
Yeah.
My records show the same as what the assessor has for. I believe the assessor included the permit values in his
Yes.
report. Yeah, that follows my records. Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions? We're going to move on to 1650 Pembina Highway.
Um, 1650 Pembina Highway is file 19-4137, roll number 0308004400, and we have 5-story building built in 1962. There's 75 suites. Page, I show a site plan here, it's on right after page 2, there's a site plan showing it on the Red River, Pembina Highway. This would be just south of, I think that's Clarence or Chevrier. Chevrier. It's a condo building right next door. And the next page is the exterior street view. And here we have model income and expense. I don't think we vary largely, but I would ask that, well, the 5.3 cap rate is because the building's actual and effective age is pre-75, 46 to 75. And so 5.3, I would ask that you maintain the assessment of 8,006,000, which is roughly $107 or $107,000 per unit for a high-rise building on the river. I think is very, very reasonable. If you have any questions, just a second. No, that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
If you have any questions.
Mr. Oliveris, questions to the assessor?
My questions were answered in previous, thank you. So no questions.
Mr. Marks?
None for me.
Mr. Pike?
You mentioned it's on the river. I'm looking at the photo. I can't quite tell how far it is off of the river. Are we to assume there are river views from these apartments?
Right.
Okay. Other questions?
At least some of them.
Right, on the back side of the apartment.
Right.
The other half would be looking out onto Pembina Highway.
Right.
Okay, another question.
Thank you. Mr. Lucky, page 4, showing your comparables. Are any of these comparables 1 through 4 on the river side?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Also comparables 1, 2, and 3. Those are all considered low-rise. They're 2 stories.
Right.
Comparable 1 has 11 suites as compared to the subject property, which has 75.
Yes.
So in your opinion, which comparable would be the best one?
Probably 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. Did you inspect this property?
I haven't been in any of these properties.
Okay. Or the subject property? Okay. Do you have any field?
That's what I meant, no, I haven't been in any of the
You haven't been in?
appealed
oh, okay.
properties today.
Thank you.
Or these, well, I haven't been
Okay.
in them recently.
Do you have anything in field notes when it was last inspected?
There was no mention recent permits or
Anything, okay. So I'm just,
inspections.
okay, so I'm just wondering, because the effective year is 62, you can't speak to the condition of the building.
I don't know what the condition is.
Okay. Thank you, that's all my questions. Mr. Oliveros, if you'd like to finish your presentation?
So, the subject property located at 1650 Pembina Highway, roll number 03-080044 000. We are asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $8,006,000 to $6,930,000. That's on the summary of page 1 of my brief. On page 2, we have a property description. It's a 5-story apartment building constructed in 1962. It's located on the east side of Pembina Highway, south of the Pembina Highway and Manhattan Avenue intersection. It has a total of 75 units, including 1 bachelor suite, 12 one-bedroom units, and 61 two-bedroom units, and 1 3-bedroom unit. The total gross floor area is 85,253 square feet, and there are approximately 88 outdoor parking stalls. The site size, according to the city's records, approximately 1.5 acres. I believe I made a data entry error here. So for the cap rate on my income workup, I inadvertently applied a 5.75 cap rate. That should be a 6 cap rate. We have included in evidence today the cap rate that should have been applied to this building. So I'd like to revise my value. 98.7 divided by 6. That works out to $6,641,000. So we are actually asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $8,006,000 to $6,640,000. So for the income workup, we applied, there were some refurbishments, in 2015, 16, and 17, which explains the vacancy rates. We've applied a 5% vacancy rate to this property. For the repairs and maintenance, we went with the lowest year, 2014, 15, 16, 17. Although we excluded the refurbishments, they excluded the rejuvenations, though the repairs and maintenance still felt quite high. So that is why I went with the 2013 R&M value. And again, I made a data entry error here. So again, we're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $8,006,000 to $6,640,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
I was just working this out. They're spending, I guess in 15, over $6,000 a year repairs and maintenance, then almost 6,000, then 4,000. Any idea what kind of work that is?
Looks like they were doing extensive renovations during that period. I didn't put any weight on those. As you can see, I used the 2013 value, so.
But as a result of that, wouldn't they be getting higher rent?
Well,
If we're looking at the condition as of today, Can I just put a note for us to go see the place? I guess what I'm saying, you have really high vacancy, so we can't really distinguish what the rent is. And there's a lot of work being done to increase the rent, but you haven't reflected the renovated rent at all, or?
That's the revenue that they were receiving as of 2017 within the reference period.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then again, you've discounted line 27, the work that was being done, and you discounted it to $17.56 per unit, which is about 3 times your average repair and maintenance for the cap rate sales. How did you arrive at the $17.56 per unit? I guess what I gathered was it just you took 13 or?
Yeah, I just took 13 years subsequent to 2013. They were very high.
Okay. And then you've made an adjustment to your cap rate, but if the building received all this work, do you think that it could be comparable to 1975 building, which is 5 3/4?
Well, we're not arguing the effective year built or the actual year built. So we've just applied what's according to our table here.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Yes, on your income statement, your expense statements, going from page 10 forward, there's a lot of expenses here, and I'm wondering if there's any permits to back some of this work up. There's a lot of plumbing with electrical.
Not according to my records, no.
There's a substantial number of things, some of these, I was wondering about permit entities. Some on 10, some on 12. And once again on page 14.
I believe that's why I went for the 2013, just because of the substantial repairs.
Okay. We don't have any permits. You don't need permits for, if you're changing the windows, you don't need a permit. If you're cutting bigger holes, you would need a permit, but.
Plumbing and electrical require a permit.
Yeah, if you're,
Even if you change a plug, it requires a permit. I know it's,
I think that, yeah.
I don't see any electrical on this so far. Looking on pages.
on page 10, there's
that's not my department. We don't know what people need permits for or if they take them out.
no, I understand what you're saying.
And I say that jokingly, I don't mean it's not. We have different expertise, that's not mine, mine's departments. I know that a lot of buildings do get extensive renovations and we don't see the permits.
Thank you. So you've prepared the brief,
I have.
and when you prepared the brief and you saw the extraordinary vacancy, did you make inquiries?
I didn't have the time to make any inquiries.
And you're unaware of, or do you know, what sort of repairs may have been made that could have resulted in these vacancies? I believe that was part of a speculative statement you made, unless I misinterpreted
Yeah.
your statement. Yeah, so do you have a sense of what work may have been done?
Just from what I've seen, off of Street View, I would expect the refurbishments to reflect interior renovations. And I don't have the values for that with me today.
Were you able to do any inspection of the property?
I was not, no.
Okay, no other questions.
Thank you. So looking at Mr. Oliveros on the statements that were provided on pages 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19, it looks like this is going from 2013 to 2017. It looks like they were doing painting, looked like they put in vinyl plank flooring, additional vinyl flooring and carpet replacement in each of these years. So, because that's spread out over 4 years, 5 years, would you assume they're doing that would you assume they are doing those repairs when the apartments are vacated?
I would assume
When
that
they're
they,
rolling them over?
sorry?
When they're rolling them over?
Yes, I would assume that they do.
Tenant?
Mhm.
And that would create the vacancy?
That would create the vacancy, yes, I would expect that. The repairs and maintenance, that's why I went with 2013. The expenses were just, if I were to stabilize any of these expenses between 2014 to 2017, I could, from my experience, or just mathematically actually, I'd be highly skewing numbers and there'd be too many adjustments, which is why 2013 seemed appropriate. When we stabilized, we would take out, of course, any capital expenditures, any major renovations, but given the number of adjustments I would have to do to bring these repairs and maintenance somewhat in line, 2013 seemed the most appropriate.
Okay. And you used actual rents on this, on page 7?
We have used actual rents on page 7, yes, including the discounts.
Page 1 of your brief with the picture of the building, was that taken off Google?
That was taken off of Google, yes.
So do you know the year?
I can't recall the year for this.
Okay. Do you know if this building has been advertising apartments, leasing?
I have not done, I have done a search for this property. I don't recall any advertisements for this one in particular.
And you have no permits for taking?
I just have it in my files here. They're it looks like they may have been minor, so it's just what I have on record. Nothing extraordinary from what I've seen.
All right, thank you.
As Mr. Lucky said, maybe when they're just rejuvenating, doing interior inspections, I don't believe construction permits are not required. in those cases, which is why it doesn't appear on the list.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to 1430 Pembina Highway. Mr. Lucky, when you are ready.
Thank you. 1430 Pembina Highway is file 19-2704. That is one building, 2 stories. The age is 1955. There's 49 suites. Page 2, there's a old sale. Probably not applicable. Page 3 is site plan. We're on Pembina Highway. Excuse me. Just about 2 blocks south, a few blocks south of the Holiday Inn, near McGilvery, and just north of Clarence. So a good Pembina Highway location. Terrible picture on page 4 for whatever reason. The color, well, it's in the shade, and the color didn't have the color on. It's actually a nice looking building. It's covered in ivy in the summer. So there's 34 2-bedrooms, 9 1-bedrooms, 6 3-bedrooms, which is a high bedroom mix for this age and vintage of building. And the model parameters, 2.4 vacancy, 5.3 cap rate as this building is 1955. I would ask that you maintain the assessment of $5,784,000, which is $118,000 a unit. And I don't believe I think that's all. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, questions?
Yes. So looking at your rent comparables here, we have comparables 1 to 4. 1 and 4. There's high rise. Sorry, those would be considered somewhat high rises. The number of buildings for comparables 1 to 3, there's multiple buildings actually. 2 for comparables 1 and 3, and we have number of buildings. Number of buildings is 4 for that. The effective year built that we have for the subject, 1955. The comps that you use for your comparables, much newer, different construction classes, higher amounts of units for each. I would like to ask this question again. Would you say you were comparing? Would you say the model was comparing apples to apples in this case?
No, these aren't the model rental comparables. These are the 4 that I chose.
Okay.
So the model takes into consideration a lot of things. But as I said in the front end, this is a really high suite mix. Like you don't find a 1955 building with 3-bedroom and high 2-bedroom suite count. So this kind of suite mix brings it into well, they were way ahead of their time, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So the building's up closer to the university, where, you know, students can share. They want more bedrooms. But this is unusually good, I guess, for this vintage of building. Typically, in the 50s, buildings were built with mostly one bedrooms and some two bedrooms. Especially on a main artery, it would be more intended for single or couples. So these are the best comparables I can find in that area, is what I'm trying to say. But it's not the model that used these to come up with the model rent.
Did you have another question?
Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't know if he was finished or not. Okay, so, the adjustments, did they have to be made for, I guess, location here? Number of stories, number of buildings, construction class? It appears to me that a number of adjustments were actually made. Is that correct?
Well, there's one high rise and one mid to high rise. There two were low rise, like the subject. 1955 construction isn't drastically different than 70, 71. These are somewhat comparable, depending on condition. You know, a tenant looks at location and condition. They have a clue what the age of the building is, usually.
1970s built properties. I think I just got my cap rate evidence, or my cap rates getting mixed up with buildings. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
all four comparables would be 5.3 cap, like the subject, because they're all pre-75.
All right, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Yes, on this structure, because of its age, were there any building permits taken out over?
I didn't have any substantial building permits.
And have there been upgrades to the building?
I can't answer that. Sure.
Thank you.
You mentioned that it's a nice looking building. Have you had an opportunity to inspect it?
Not inside this directly. I said, this is a poor picture compared to how it looks when you drive by, especially in the summer. It's got a nice wrought iron fence, good quality, and it has nice ivy growing up the fence and the building. That's all I can really give us evidence.
Okay. And on your page 9, the assessment taxation department questionnaire, I note that they've characterized this building as having 9 one-bedrooms, 31 two-bedrooms, 6 three-bedrooms, which my total is 46 units. You identify that there are 49. I just wanted to understand if this is inaccurate, or if the city's role is inaccurate.
Good point, I'll have to check that. I don't know right offhand if,
I think the
If
applicant's.
our records are wrong, or
Yeah.
if the property manager is wrong.
Right, yeah. The applicant's
Unless they-
information would be consistent with yours.
Well, unless they took 3 units of a service, our records would be based on the building blueprints.
Okay. All right.
But I'll definitely check.
I have no other questions.
Thank you. Any of my questions have been asked and answered. Mr. Oliveris, if you'd like to give us your brief?
Yes, so the subject property located at, or address of 1430 Pembina Highway, roll number 03-080-549-000. Page 1, summary of my presentation today. We are asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $5,784,000 to $4,166,000. Page 2 of my brief, looking at the property description. It's located on the east side of Pembina Highway between Kelsey Avenue and Fletcher Crescent in the Crescent Park neighborhood of the city of Winnipeg. It consists of a 2.5-story structure built in 1955, presently being used as a multi-family residential building. The subject property has a total of 49 units, including 9 one-bedroom suites, 34 two-bedroom suites, and 6 three-bedroom suites. I did confirm with my client there are 34 two-bedroom suites, as opposed to what I believe that they had on the 2017
Yeah.
IME. I think that's what you're referring
Yes.
to. The site size, according to the city assessment department records, is 38,217 square feet. So, to bring you through my income valuation on page 7. So for the potential market gross rents, we've applied the 2017 rents that were realized at that year. Vacancy is already included in the rents, which is why we have it laid out this way. We do include laundry and parking income with our rents, or with the effective gross income. And for the expenses, unless otherwise stated, we have used 2017. And on page, or sorry, you'll see on page 7 of my brief also, line 27, for the repair and maintenance, I state that I have stabilized the expenses, and I show how I have done that on page 30 of my brief. So if I can refer you to that page so I can bring you, or sort of explain how we did this, or how we stabilized our expenses. So, again, on page 30, we've excluded capital expenditures and waste, garbage removal, waste removal. The owner does mix in the waste removal in the income statements. For 2017, for the electrical and plumbing, you can see those are marked in red. I didn't include those in my average for those 2 line items. And for the remainder, for the painting, we cap it at $175 per suite. So that is exactly what I did here. So I allowed, I subtracted 9% of the painting expenses to arrive at $175 per suite. So with that, with the R&M less any waste and snow removals and CapEx, we have stabilized the expenses to $82,855. Now for the cap rate, I'm going back to page 7 of my brief. We've applied a base cap rate of 6.25% based on the age of the building. And we've allowed a 0.1% premium just for some inadequate parking. We got a total of 49 units. Outdoor parking stalls, we only have 30. And with that, we have come to a value of $4,166,000 rounded, and that is what I asked the board to consider as the 2020 assessed value for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
I guess, do you know what these discounts are for?
3 months rent. Other tenant incentives. Yeah, the 3 months rent is the only discount that I'm aware of at this stage.
Okay. Again, you're stabilizing the repair and maintenance at 2.5 times your cap rate sales. So you're using the high cap rate and reducing the value with high repair and maintenance. And then on top of that, you're adding, I guess, how did you arrive at the extra cap rate for no parking? Is that from your cap rate study?
No, that's just a subjective opinion. So our cap rate studies are typically for good locations. Adequate parking, according to the records here.
So
I don't really state that, but
on page 6 of your cap rate, 210 St. Mary's, there's 11 suites and you have 3 parking. Is that adequate? I think that's
I would not say that's adequate parking.
okay. And then the second one, you don't know what the parking is, there's no parking amount in the workup.
No, I do not.
The third one, there's no parking amount.
Which address?
155 Mighton, doesn't state there's no parking.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of that.
And then Balmoral, there's 10 stalls and there's 28 units. And then the next one, there's no parking. I guess what I'm getting at is how did you arrive at if you don't even know, or whoever did this cap rate study, I suspect I know who, but doesn't know what the parking for the cap rate sales is. How do you say that this one's inferior?
That's my subjective opinion. Yes, it was done by another individual in our office, but 0.1% low parking.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all my questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
And none for me.
I may have missed it. You indicated the vacancy rate was included in the rents, and would that be at the city rate, or is that at actual vacancy? And what rate was vacancy included at?
First, I don't have the exact numbers for the percentage vacancy. The client had just sent us rents excluding vacancy.
So presumably those were actual vacancies, and we're not sure what that rate is.
Presuming those are actual vacancies, Sussex is typically very good at, is good, they are good at calculating their values here. So I would trust that they included the appropriate vacancy rates.
Okay, thanks. No other questions?
So, just a question on your page 30, on your repair and maintenance.
Yes.
So the average per suite is $16.85.
Average per suite is $16.85, that is correct.
Is that considered high in the industry or low or average?
Just gonna refer to my repair and maintenance study here that would have been included.
Okay.
So we are looking at let's see, in 1955, low rise. Actual one. It's hard to say. Every property is performing on a site-specific basis. So I'm looking at low-rise 1946 to 1959 of my repair and maintenance study. I guess that gives some clarity on having to value these properties on a site-specific basis. If I were to say, on average, let's see. Given the amount of, the rent per unit that they had attained as of 2017, for the subject property itself, I would say that the repairs and maintenance are high, actually. Maybe this building is running into some issues here, but for this particular building, I would say that my stabilized repair and maintenance, it appears high, but as you can see, I've done what I can to remove any atypical expenses,
Right.
and that's still what I come up to.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. And we're going to move on to 1626 Pembina. Mr. Lucky, whenever you're ready.
Excuse me. File number 19-3471, roll 0308004900, 1626 Pembina Highway. We have a 1960 two-story building. Site plan that shows just south of Crescent and Chevrolet. It's Riviera Crescent backs on. Those are single family, so some of these may have a river view, I don't know. It's close to previous one we had that had the river property. Anyway, this is the street view picture I have of it. And we have model parameters which arrive at almost the exact same NOI as the applicant's, difference being cap rate. So this is a bit of a different cap rate in that the 1960H typically would be 5.3 cap rate, But the other factor is as the buildings get smaller, the cap rates go down. So this building is, it's 11,000 square feet, so at 15,000 square feet, it would hit the 5.3 cap. This being a small building, theory, the logic, which sound in my mind, is that as the buildings are smaller, there'd be a lot more prospective purchasers. People, we call them mom and dad operations. People can finance their houses and buy small buildings like this. Actually, my mom and dad had one. That's what I call them, mom and dad. Wish we still had it. But anyway, the model works, and if the NOI is right on, the cap rate's right on. So I would ask that you maintain the assessment of $996, which is $90,500 per unit, and that's a good number. Nice little building, good location. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Oliveris. Questions?
Okay, so. You haven't provided any of the background work to arrive at the model NOI? Is that correct?
No.
No. Other than the rent comparables, of course. For the cap rate as well, have you provided any supporting documentation of how you arrived to the cap rates?
Just the page summarizing them.
Okay, but none of the background work to
No.
arrive at? No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Martz?
Because of the age of the building, has there been any major upgrades done to it?
I'm not aware of any major upgrading. I don't know.
It just seems like the maintenance costs are quite low for the age of that building. There might be something.
Well, the maintenance, we'll get to the evidence of the applicant.
So there were no permits taken on this?
I checked for permits and there was no substantial permits.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Lucky, you suggested that this apartment could possibly have a river view?
I don't know.
Making it more
It could,
desirable?
it may, I'm not sure.
So are you aware that Riviera Crescent backs onto this property with residential properties on all of these river lots?
Yeah,
So
that's
that-
what I said, it depended, you know, that's why I said it could have, I don't know, depending where you are in the building. Obviously, you'd have to be in the back or sides, and then if it was a bungalow behind you, you'd have a river view. I could have, I'm not saying that there is,
Okay, because it's a two-story building.
yeah.
And just on your comparables on page 4, certainly in regards to age, would you say your comparable number 1 would be your best comparable, given that it's a two-story, it's not far from the subject property, it's 1960, same vintage, not far off unit count, size, etc., rent?
One and two would be good. having all 2 bedrooms and one 3-bedroom, it's a really high bedroom count for this style and age of building. Maybe these buildings along Pembina were built with more bedrooms. Normally on streets like Portage and that.
Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna stop you there. So are you suggesting that 3 bedrooms are desirable?
2 and 3 bedrooms would get more rent than 1.
Right, sorry, but I'm just asking about 3 exclusively, not 2. So you're suggesting that 3 bedrooms are desirable?
Yes.
Thank you. If you'd like to give us your presentation?
So the subject property, 1626 Pembina Highway, roll number 03-08004900. Page 1 of my brief. We're asking this board to reduce the assessed value from $996,000 to $840,000. Page 2, looking at the property description. The subject property is located on the east side of Pembina Highway, south of the Pembina Highway and Manahan Avenue intersection in the Crescent Park neighborhood of Winnipeg. It's the property consists of a 2.5-story structure built in 1960 and is presently being used as a multifamily residential building. Has a total of 11 units, including 10 2-bedroom units and 1 3-bedroom unit. The site size, according to the city assessment records, is 9,896 square feet and zoned RMFM, residential multifamily. Page 3, I've provided a further map for you, just showing some of the amenities around the area, quite a few of them. I do acknowledge that. Moving to my income valuation. So, potential market rents, we applied 2017. The vacancy, we have used the assessor's vacancy of 2.4%. We have included the parking income. Expenses, I've applied the same methodology as I have for previous properties unless otherwise stated. We have gone with 2017. On page 7B, you will see how I have stabilized the expenses to come to a typical year for the subject building. So in my notes there, you can see where I've used the 3-year average, or if I've seen an unusually high year, I will go with where I felt was appropriate. And with that, I've applied a repair and maintenance of $16,822. That works out to $1,529 per suite. Applying a 6% cap rate, that brings us to our value of $840,000, and that is what I asked this board to consider today. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Mr.
None.
Deitch?
Thank you.
And I'm also good, thank you. And we'll move on to our last property at 1472 Pembina Highway. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lucky.
Thank you. File number 19-3535, roll 030806260000. We have a 2-story 1959 building, 1472 Pembina with 17 suites. returns were done, and there's an old dollar sale. Next page is the site plan. It shows coming a highway just almost at Crane, with just north of the Tony Romas or Clarence. So it's a good location in Fort Garry, East Fort Garry. Here's street view. I think the building next door is probably condos, so the subject isn't for sale. Our model, we have 10 one-bedrooms, 6 two-bedrooms, and 1 bachelor. I think our NOI is lower than the applicants, so I would accept their NOI. And our cap rate again, like the previous one, this is a smaller building. Just under the 15,000. So we have a cap rate of 5.1 as opposed to the bigger buildings that would this age would be 5.3. Don't have any permits. Haven't been in the building, so I can't tell you the condition. And I would ask that you maintain the assessment of $1,485,000, which is just over $87,000 a unit. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveira, questions of the assessor?
My questions have been answered in previous, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
No, mine have been answered previously as well.
Might as well.
Mine as well. Would you like to finish your presentation, thank you?
Okay, thank you. Subject property located at 1472 Pembina Highway, roll number 03-0806260000. We're asking this board, looking at page 1 of my brief, to reduce the assessed value of from $1,485,000 to $1,265,000. Mr. Lucky has described the property already, so I'll skip over pages 2 and 3 of my brief. There are maps on there for your reference. So moving on to my income valuation on page 7 of my brief. So we use the actual market rents for the subject property as of 2017, applying the assessor's vacancy rate of 2.4%. The expenses, applying the same logic again. The repair and maintenance seems to be the biggest issue with any apartment building. So here we see that the rents have not fluctuated with this property for 1472 Pembina. So we've applied the average of 2013 to 2017, and that works out to $1,472 per suite. Applying a 6.25% cap rate to the NOI, we're not too far off from the assessor, about a $4,000 difference. The issue here is cap rate. So 6.25%, and that brings us to our value of $1,265,000. And again, ask the board to consider our evidence today to reduce the assessed value for the subject property from $1,485,000 to $1,265,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lucky?
No questions.
Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
You've inspected the building?
I have not, no.
No other questions?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
May I, sorry, may I offer a summation if that's okay?
On this
Quick one?
property?
Just with the rest of the entire hearing in total.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I thank this board for listening to our evidence today. And I would just like to, again, to offer summation. We have provided this board with very detailed documentation here today that I ask be considered. The assessor, through questioning, we have learned that they have provided a summary of their workups. However, they have provided a very minimal amount as to the support of their valuation. For this reason, I ask the board to consider our evidence today, and that concludes
Thank
the
you.
summary.
Mr. Lucky, did you have a wish for a summation?
Sure, just on the same point, I guess. You're looking at a cap rate study with details, but if you take the average R&M of just over $600 for those cap rate sales, they're treated differently than these properties under appeal today. So you're using a high cap rate for properties that are similar, and high repair and maintenance to get the values lower. So while there is details, they should be analyzed carefully to make sure that these properties are treated the same. And that's all I would like to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
And thank you both for your time this morning, and this hearing is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like you're make your 1 o'clock.